This is the BP Autotanker Major Pack Number 1 by Lesney. This casting has always been appealing to me because of its simplicity. Made from 1961 to 65 in 1/89th scale, based upon a prototype of which only one was made, it has a fairly basic shape and doesn't feature a lot of detail. Something really cool about the real vehicle is you see that BP on the front between the headlights? That's where you enter. There's a door there to enter the cab. You see, this is the direction I'm taking this. I wanted to modernize it. After a little research, I found that picture you saw of the tanker. That's a Spanish BP Superfiul heating oil tanker. I really like the logo, the Superfuel logo, or maybe it's Superfuel. And the new BP logo is kind of cool too. I like the looks of that tanker. And so the direction I'm going to go is pretty much clean like that, just with new logos. Now, this casting originally, some of them it seems they all had silver headlights as the detail. Some of them had silverback bumpers from pictures I've seen, and some didn't. This one did. And when I was originally doing this, I was thinking I was only going to do the headlights. But you'll see how it ends up. I did want to fill in that hole on the front before I put a decal up there. I put the tape on the outside, which is what I like to do when I use JB Weld. That's what I ended up using to fill the hole. It's kind of cool in that the early casting, this is apparently an early version of the casting because it had that hole. Later castings, like I said, they only did this from 61 to 65. Later ones had that hole filled in. I wasn't so lucky, but it's a perfect excuse to bust out the JB Weld. And I'm always looking for excuses to bust out the JB Weld. Filled it in. I'm sure some purists out there cringing at this. But hey, my casting, my rules. It's not like there's not a bazillion of these things out there anyway. So I mix up the JB Weld, fill in the hole, and it's off to the races. Like I said, the original one, they did in a two-tone that you saw from that earlier picture. And then they used the white decals on the side with just the BP logo. There wasn't any writing or anything fancy on it. They did have the decals on the front and back as well. And so I'm redoing that. Here you see the tape coming off the next morning. I like to let JB Weld set up overnight. It was nice and flush. And I really didn't need to do anything else to that before it was ready for a decal. I do end up cleaning the body up a little bit. This is a Restomod, so I'm not sure what's the best way to explain this. I clean up the casting to try and get rid of playware is what I'm trying to do. Try and file out any dings or blemishes that were there from playing with it. There are some casting lines that I lightly get rid of, but I don't want to overdo it, if you know what I mean. The glass on this did have a deep crack in it. It was hard to see depending upon the angle. I love the tint of the glass, so I end up keeping it. But other than that, this was in really good shape and didn't take much work to get ready. The wheels, Lord knows this has enough wheels. You're not going to see me take all of the wheels off the axles. You just grind down that little burr and then pull the wheels off. There you see one of the Dremel tools. I have two different Dremel pools. That one is a real small, handy one. And then I have a regular Dremel tool that I use most of the time. Drilled it and tapped it. Really nice big post on this. It hooks in at the front. There's a slot for the front of the base, and then this post is at the back of the casting. I do use 256 screws on this, or a 256 screw, because again, I wish they all had posts the size of this. It's really a pleasure to do something like this, to drill it and tap it. Unlike the super skinny redline posts, where you live in fear every second that you're drilling them. There was never a moment of fear. Drill it, tap it, the screw goes in, great, you're ready to rock and roll. I do like to clean the castings with isopropyl alcohol before I paint them. I did want to be careful of the JB weld at the front of this. I didn't want to soak it with IPA for fear of what might happen. So that's why you see me holding the way I do, protecting that JB weld section. Then I just wipe the IPA off and give it a good wipe down, and it's ready to go. I do end up hitting this with lacquer white. I do spray the base with a black enamel I had handy. If I remember right, it was Rust-Oleum. Found a cool way to tape that thing to hold it. There was a center bar running down it, and so I just put tape along it. Yeah, that was ready to be painted. The decals. Like I said, I do like the new BP logo and the Superfiul. Excuse me. This Superfiul logo I really like. Again, this is apparently heating oil that's sold in Spain. So I did print these decals myself. Found the logos online. I believe it was at Logos of the World, if I remember right. There's a website, I believe that's the name of it, that you can search logos. You can find vector graphics logos, which are the best for me to work with, being infinitely scalable and remaining their sharpness. So printed up the decals. These were done on white decal paper. They were done on a LaserJet printer, an HP LaserJet, onto white decal paper. And again, like I mentioned before, this is a white lacquer paint that I used. I did mess around with that BP logo to get the exact size I wanted. I didn't want it to be tiny, like the ones at the front and the back. I wanted it to be bigger, to fill in basically the height of that, let's call it a window that they give you to drop it in, where the original decal went. And then I centered the Superfiul. Again, kind of keeping that original tanker design in mind. I do use micro set when I'm doing these. And then once they're in position, after everything's basically ready, I do go over them with micro saw. The axles. Once all the axles are off, I just throw them in the drill, spin them around with some sandpaper. I believe this was 1000 grit, until they're nice and clean. The wheels themselves were in great shape. I didn't have to paint them or do anything special. I just washed them in warm soapy water, like I did the windshield, and they turned out great. The wheels were fantastic. I was surprised at what great shape they were in. Like I said, there is a deep crack in the windshield, but it's not all the way through. And so I decided to keep the windshield rather than trying to redo one, because it has a slight tint to it, as you'll see later, if you can't make it out here. And I really like that slight tint, especially since I'm doing this in white. I felt that it added a little color, some subtle color. There you can see the color of the windshield. It added some subtle color to it. There was a bubble at the top of the gauzy. Had to get rid of that before I dunked the windshield in there. And again, I was counting on the gauzy, the heaviness of the gauzy, the thickness of the gauzy to help strengthen that windshield. And I'm really happy with it. There are some angles where you will see that crack in the finished build. But rather than trying to see if there's a replacement windshield available or trying to vacuform something in clear, I just wanted to keep this one. I thought it was a nice looking windshield. It didn't have any other real flaws to it. So I thought, why not keep it? And when I first do this, there you see me using the Sharpie pen. Sharpie silver, metallic silver pen. I was only going to do the headlights, keeping the thought that some of these didn't have rear bumpers. They didn't have any other detail on them. So I was going to stick with that. And here you see me putting the windshield in. I used the Bondic resin pen for this, as you'll see in a second. That's it over there to the right. I picked that up off Amazon on a deal, or no, off Woot on a deal. Geez, a long time ago. And it's lasting forever. So just hit that with a little of the resin. You squeeze the pin part to squeeze out the resin. There I was trying to see if it was squeezing out. And I just put a little of that on the post. It did have the post inside holding the glass in place that I drilled out earlier to get the glass out. Now the glass basically, again, just drops in over that post. And then the resin, and when you see this light go on here at the other end of the pin, it's a UV light that then cures the resin. And that's just fast and easy. And very secure. So at this point, I'm basically thinking I'm done. And you'll see me putting it together here where I thought I was done. But after getting it together and looking at it spinning around on the turntable at first, I realized I wasn't really happy without more detail on it. So I did go back and add some additional detail to this. There was detail on the casting. They just didn't choose to highlight it. I thought now that this isn't two-tone, it's just the single white color with the logos, that the detailing would really help it. And so there you see where we started. And other than the two-tone paint, and so you can see that was a solid white sticker on the side that would basically have the BP logo on it, as you see over here. And you'll see the direction I went with it, but I thought it really needed additional detail to this because I do just the solid white. So here's where I ended up, and you can see I detailed on the roof. I detailed the front lights as well as turn signals, same on the back. While I'm thinking about it, I need to do the YouTube-y stuff. So if you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like for it. It really does help the channel with the algorithms, and I truly do appreciate it if you could take a moment and do that. And that's it for the YouTube-y stuff. Well, until the end of the video where I show you other videos and ways to subscribe. See, the windshield, I think, looks okay. And you'll see, hey, actually, you don't even see it there. You just have to hit it right to see the crack. But I'm pretty happy with this. I'm glad with the direction I went with the cleaner look to it and the new logos. It really does remind me of that tanker that I showed earlier. And hopefully you like it too. So thanks for watching the video. Thanks for supporting the channel. Everybody stay safe and healthy out there. I'll catch you in the next one.